So when we shot him with the dart and he finally was down, we took turns like hopping on his back and like cutting his hair. When I hopped on his back, I kind of sat on I forgot the dart was there. I sat on the dart, pushing it a little more, and he goes, "Jindrak, get the off of me." They were kind of just throwing Hail Mary, and we were the Hail Mary pass, like, okay, let's get these guys from the power plant. They've been signed for a few months at least, and they put us on TV actually all together as the Natural Born Thrillers. They told me I was going to be in Evolution, mind-blowing. So basically Triple H didn't want me in it, and for good reason. Like, me and Orton, we were idiots, man. He wanted to, chuck me and Orton off a bridge, kick us out of the car, stuff like that. All the mediocrity I had in WWE, the things I saw my friends do, and I would travel with Eddie and Ray and Randy Orton, books, like sponsors, and I started doing all that stuff. I wrote a book. Wrestling there and like getting over there in a short period of time was probably the most amazing thing that ever happened in my career.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.
You could say my guest today has had quite the thrilling career spanning from WCW to WWE to CMLL. He's a former two-time WCW Tag Team Champion, former CMLL World Champion. Please welcome Marco Corleone, a.k.a. The Reflection of Perfection, Mark Jindrak. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on. Thank you so much.
No, I'm so excited to have you here, man. There's so much going on in wrestling to talk about, so much I want to talk about with your career. Any big Halloween plans, though, coming up before we get into that?
Just I have a 9-year-old, so
Right.
pretty much whatever he's gonna want to do. There's a lot of trunk or treats. That's the new thing, trunk or treat.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, whatever he wants to do. We'll probably go to 3 or 4 of those. One at the church, one at the school, one at so we'll have a good time. I'll live through him.
That's all we could do, I guess, these days. We're past that good age, that trick-or-treating age.
Yes, yes.
You made a post about a year ago. You were showing off that still incredible physique that you're in and everything, and you said that heels inspired you to want to wrestle in the US again. Have you been able to do that since you made that post?
I mainly I only wrestled really in Mexico. I did take a bunch of dates. I probably wrestled like maybe I can't remember, maybe probably like 6 or 7 dates, and one of them was Triple Mania last year.
Right.
This past year, Triple Mania with Triple A. They teamed up with WWE, which is kind of crazy. But last year, they had a battle royal where they bring back some of the old, characters and stuff, and myself and Kenzo Suzuki came. Jeff Jarrett was there. I think Jinder, I forget his last name. He was there. Mahal.
Jinder Mahal, right? Yeah.
Mahal. Yep. So it was, and I saw Alberto Del Rio, worked with him,
cool.
tagged with him in Tijuana one time. So it was good. It was, I kind of retired in 2018, and picking back up and wrestling 5 years later, it was surreal in terms of like, just Father Time is undefeated. It doesn't matter how good a shape I stay in and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just injuries get to you, and my worst nightmare kind of came true. Like I'm always a tremendous leaper, but I'd have dreams sometimes when I was younger. Like I was trying to jump, and I couldn't jump in my dreams and stuff. And I actually, when I started training to get back into shape to do some, some stuff in Mexico, maybe in the United States, I went to Dr. Tom's. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I went to Dr. Tom and Glenn Jacobs have a school here.
Yeah.
So I went in the ring, just do some blow up drills, ran the ropes and stuff, and like literally it felt like I was running in quicksand. I felt it felt so weird. It felt so weird. It's just incredible to me. I've had a really hard time with my whole life. I've kind of defined myself as an athlete. Everything's athletic, even I'm very young acting all the time. I'm 48 years old now, but I'm still a guy that runs to his car or skips in the parking lot with my son. And but it's getting harder and harder, because wrestling it's taking its toll little by little. I'm still very, very functional and but I got it's like I'm like an old car, you know.
Yeah.
You gotta hit the radio
Maintenance.
to get it working.
Right.
You gotta attach the door window thing to roll down. Like you know, there's certain it's and that's kind of how it feels.
For
But
sure.
other than that, I mean, I was happy with my career. You know, it was cool to come back, you know, 4 or 5 years after retirement and run some shows, but it was tough. It was tough. You know, I don't like showing that representation of myself. Like I'm in good shape and stuff,
Mhm.
and you know, but not like how I used to be. You know, and I always said like when I can't keep up with my what I define as me, then I gotta hang it up. You know, and so that's kind of why I hung it up like at age 48. So
Age
I'm
40.
officially done. Done.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay, so officially done. When do you find out that you have that insane leaping ability? Is that early on, like way before wrestling?
Oh yeah, yeah. I loved basketball growing up, and you know, it was always a you want to be able to dunk as soon as possible. And I dunked, I think, at first at age 15,
Wow.
and you know, just that's when I kind of just you know, and then I got older and played high school basketball and in college, and you know, dunking was a part of my repertoire. So. And that's kind of what you know when I got into wrestling, when I got the WCW Power Plant, started my wrestling career, I used a lot of my jumping stuff, you know, for drop kicks and stuff,
Oh
and
yeah.
you know, and that just I really believe in being a basketball player probably was more of an easy transition than if I had like a background in MMA or some kind of amateur wrestling. I really believe, you know,
Yeah.
because wrestling, you know, is a it's yeah it's strong, but it also has to be very coordinated and you know and clean and crisp, you know. So that's what I always strive for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean that some of the jumps you've done and throughout your career are insane. I think still the highest vertical in WWE, at least that's what it says when I looked it up. I think you still have the highest vertical.
I don't know, you know, I don't know if they ever measured it ever officially, but um or anybody else for that matter. But you know, I'd say easy top three, you know,
Definitely.
leapers,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
No, that dropkick was a thing of beauty. And I've heard you say it's a fateful night in Denny's, of all places, that changes the course of your life from maybe doing basketball or something else to wrestling, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a crazy story. I've told it a few times, so sorry if you guys have heard it before, but yeah, like I tell you, I play basketball, and I went to a school near Rochester, New York called Cayuga College, and I played my sophomore year, and a couple of the guys that played with, they were graduating, and they were going to move down to Florida to start their careers. So they said, "Hey, Mark, why don't you come down for the summer?" And so I went down with them for the summer, which was only supposed to be the summer,
Right.
and I drove their U-Haul truck. So they drove their cars. So when I got there in Orlando, I didn't have a car. I didn't have any wheels for the summer. So I kind of got a job close by, which was like right across the street on International Drive. I got a job at Denny's waiting tables. But the cool thing was I got to I worked the graveyard shift at night. It was open 24 hours, and that allowed me to have weekends free. So that was why I wanted to move down there for the summer and hang out with my boys, you know.
For
But during
sure.
the
Yeah.
week, they're starting their careers and working like in food service, like 65, 70 hours. So, you know, so I got a job waiting tables. It was crazy. I never did anything like that, but you know, I got good, you know. But one night, two wrestlers came in. One was Alex Wright, another guy, but not a guy that went by the name Barry Houston. Okay, and uh, they were eating and stuff. I didn't, you know, they kind of looked like athletes. You know, they kind of looked muscular and stuff. And I was waiting on them, and you know, I got to talking. Alex Wright was more quiet. He was kind of like reserved. I think he was on the phone with maybe with his wife or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But Barry was the one that was talking to me. You know, really, really social, and you know, we had a good rapport and stuff. Um, he had mentioned wrestling, that there were wrestlers and stuff, and but basically you know, they came, we met them, talked to them, and they left. And basically later that night, like at maybe 3 4 in the morning, it was just myself, the dishwasher, and the chef that was in the restaurant at the time, and two guys come in, two like probably like kids like 20 years old, maybe two guys like that. And they said, "Hey, you got 4 quarters for $1." So yeah, no problem. I opened up the register. When I opened the register, I looked up and there was a gun pointed at my head. and the other kid had like a pipe, and they said give me all the money and stuff. So I gave them the money, and they took off. They scrammed, and no, not even close. I don't wasn't even any close calls. So I
Right.
was,
Right.
in fact, silly me being young and never really going, and like moving from Central New York to Orlando was like the first time I've ever been on my own. Like
Yeah.
so I felt like this was wow, this is a great story. I can't believe this has happened. This is adventurous. Like silly me in my young
You
mind.
you liked it,
I could have
entertained by it. Yeah.
yeah. So the police came and stuff, and whatever. The probably around 5:30 in the morning, I'm go back to my apartment complex where we lived across the street, and like I said, my buddies they're working 70-hour weeks, so I wasn't going to wake them up prematurely. They got up like 6:15 or something, so I decided to grab a towel and go down to the community pool. At the community pool, I'm going to hop in the hot tub. Lo and behold, the guy Barry Houston was there. I can't remember if he was there with like he was dating a girl there. I think he was dating a girl. Had some friends there, and they were drinking and stuff. Having a great time. And I got there, and I told him what had happened. We continued. Like I said, we had a good rapport in the Denny's restaurant,
Yeah.
and we continued talking. I told him what happened. He goes, "You see, this something could have happened to you tonight." And he had mentioned me becoming a wrestler in the restaurant. He's like, "You got a good build, like." I was like, "Nah, I'm playing basketball. I got to go back to school for my junior year." And he was like, you know, "Well, you could probably do it, man." He's like, "But whatever." He left, and but we later on talked about it more when we hooked up at the pool there. And he was like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Nothing. The investigators or the police, or whatever, are going to come to my apartment, do some those drawings, those composite drawings, or whatever, to
Yeah.
get a description of the kids, and then nothing." He's like, "Hey, come with me." He's like, "I'm we're filming. They're filming down at Universal Studios, doing like I think like their secondary or third, small programs, like Superstars. Or well, I don't know what it was. I don't even know what it was called.
Yeah.
WCW Saturday Night or something, and." So he took me there, and sure enough, I'm backstage. It was so weird because I grew up on the character based WWF days: Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, Hogan, Macho Man, and now I'm walking backstage at WCW, and it's like my childhood is passing in front of my eyes because if you remember, all those WWF stars all were jumping ship to Turner in WCW.
Yep.
So I'm walking backstage. I'm seeing Kurt Hennig. I see Ravishing Rick Rude. Um, I'm dying. I saw Hogan. I saw Hogan. Um, saw a couple others like it wasn't Bruiser Bar Beefcake. He had a different character. I forgot. I
Was it
forget.
this? Was
Uh,
that Zodiac? I'm trying to remember.
no, it was
Oh,
I don't know,
maybe Booty Daddy. It was one of those that he took.
what something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but
Master of Disguise, Bruce Beef.
yeah, but just seeing all these guys that I grew up on, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy,
Yeah.
and this guy Barry Houston introduced me to Sarge, who was the head of the power plant at the time. He also did ring crew, so I met him, and um, my first encounter with him was as you would expect it. I'm like, "Hey Sarge, what's up? My name is Mark. I'm going to join the power plant. I'm going to try out next month." And he goes, "Do your squats." That's all he said to me. He didn't say hello, and I said, "Do your squats." And I was like, "Wow, this is for real," So, but yeah, so I met everybody, and basically, I didn't want to overwarm my welcome, So
Yeah.
I spent a little time there, and I was leaving the lot. Thanked Barry, for bringing me, and I was sold. I'm definitely trying out, and he also offered to pay my tryout. He
Oh
paid my
wow.
tryout. I was a young college kid with no money. He paid my tryout. I think it was like $300.
That's got to instill confidence like right away, right?
Well, it was like a pay it forward thing. And he told me one day, like pay it forward to somebody, and so basically that was it. I was walking up the lot, and this was like the cherry on the cake. As I'm walking up the lot, this black Mercedes rolls up, all blacked out, rolls his window down. He looks at at me and is Macho Man. He goes, "Ooh," he goes, "I thought you were Alex Wright." He thought I was Alex Wright,
Right.
and I was like, "No." He said, "Well, hey." Said, "Have a good day," and he rolled up the windows and he drove on to the parking lot, where they parked their cars, and
Yeah.
that to me was like that, like, wow, this is something I got to do, and I did either later that month or the next month because like I was going back to school. I was only going to be on summer break for like 2 months, so I pretty much learned about it, and I think I went later that month, and it was like a 3-day tryout, and I went. It was like 26 or 27 other guys, and it was torture, running and squats and all these drills, doing like 50 push-ups, holding it halfway, 20, like they try to break you. They really try to mentally break you. That was kind of like the test, and it made sense later on because like if you're not mentally tough in this business, like if you're not one of those guys who can afford their own private plane or bus, or it's you got to learn to be a survivor. You got to learn how to take punches and keep rolling with it. Miss late flights and early late nights, early mornings, stuff like that. Those are the things that, and I think from doing like a tryout like that, where it's more like mind over the physical of it all. Even though it was all physical, like some people just won't quit. Even if they're puking and in my circumstance, 27 guys tried out that, and by day two, by like the afternoon, it was like 3 left, me and 2 other guys,
Wow. Who
and
were those other two? Do you remember?
you know. It wasn't anybody who came back. Like it
Yeah.
was basically whoever survived. Basically got to meet with Jody Hamilton. The assassin. He was the head of the power plant at the time, and he would invite you back. And sure enough, he invited me. He's like, "I think you got a good look. You're tall. You're young. Got the world in front of you." He's like, "I think you'd be good. If you want to come, train. I invite you to the power plant. You're welcome. And that's I made a decision, and basically I forego school. If I basically quit school, and basically stayed. I worked maybe a few months in Orlando. I stayed in Orlando and kept working. Like I got a better job. I got a good job like at the Orlando World Marriott.
Okay.
Better.
Yeah. Better
So
than
I
Denny's getting robbed at 3 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. So get some money quick to save some money to basically move to Atlanta to where I needed to be where the power plant was, and yeah. So that was pretty much it.
That's
Quit school and
crazy.
went to yeah.
It's insane that it all got sent into motion from that night. So I wonder if they ever caught those two guys from your sketch or anything, or
I
if
think they did. I
they
think they
did.
did. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They did. I don't remember, but they're hitting for some reason. They hit up other Denny's. So I guess
Okay. A string.
yeah, they tried putting their hand in the cookie jar one too many times and got nabbed,
They got
so yeah.
it's insane. But
And
yeah.
the kid, the guy was wearing a Mets baseball cap, so so being a Yankees fan, the guy was obviously, obvious on the
Yeah.
wrong side of the,
He's on
fence.
the wrong
So
side of the fence in more ways than one, even. Yeah. So
yeah.
do you remember finding out that you were getting paired with Sean O'Hare after you kind of graduated from the power plant?
um, I kind of remember how it kind of organically came about.
Okay.
Originally, it was me and Chuck Palumbo were trying to form a tag team. Originally, we tried going as the Soul Surfers,
Mm.
and we had like that was more his inspired by him, but we went full blast with it. We bought some board shorts, we taped up the ankles, wore Van sneakers, some cool Vans that matched our board shorts, and
Yeah.
we kind of that was kind of our gimmick. We called ourselves the Soul Surfers, and the whole thing. And let me add, like when I started doing the power plant, things accelerated very quickly for me, in this sense. As terms of wrestling, you learn the moves and you're green as hell. But like in terms of like the road, one day I was down there just like basically just training, and Terry Taylor came in and pointed to a couple guys. Like I think one was Mike Sanders, Elix Skipper, myself, and another fellow that was down there, and they said, "Hey, we want to bring. How do you guys want to come on security? Do security, TV security at Nitro and Thunder?" And we're
Okay.
like, "Yeah, hell yeah!" So not only did we got a couple paydays, you know, it was probably like 250 or 300 a show, but I mean, gee, it was like a couple shows a week. That's like, and plus you got to be on the road, and so I got to hang out with like and meet everybody and become like friends with guys, you know, like going to the bar after the you know the hotel bar after Nitros were the best. That's where I got to meet all the fellas, you know, like I did a shot with of Jack Daniels with Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, and
Incredible.
he was like kid, you got to do it this way, and he made me gargle it, and then you know, and I did it, you know, I held on, and
Yeah.
but having FaceTime and time to chill with guys like him, you know, I remember Big Boss Man was really cool too. Kevin Nash was really cool. Just you know, just everybody was, you know, they accepted me right from the beginning, and that's how kind of like it was kind of cool about that is my abrupt decision to quit school. Like everyone's thinking, what you know, they thought I was on drugs or something. My parents and my friends back at home, I just picked up and said I'm gonna become a wrestler. It came out of left field, you know, like I never talked about wrestling or anything. It just and but early on when I got to be like TV security, you saw me on TV like 7, 8, 9 times on Nitro. Sometimes walking with Eric Bischoff, sometimes laying on the ground because Hogan just laid me out with a mop or something, or you know, standing outside while you know Ric Flair's doing something. You know, like just as TV security. So my friends would see me and stuff, and obviously I wasn't wrestling, but they, you know, everyone was thinking, including my parents, like, oh, he's part of the show. You know, he's really, you know, and so it made me it made it look like it made it look like already made it almost, you know, and that's how I, you know. Meanwhile, Chuck and I were becoming good friends at the power plant, and started working on this tag team, the Soul Servers. So I started when I thought we were, I mean, good enough to put on a match. Um, I presented some stuff to Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart was always like working with young talent at the time. And, you know, I always had his ear and I'd show him stuff, pictures of me and Chuck. And like, he's like, oh man, I love that. He's like, we got to get you to do a TV match with one of the tag teams, and, you know, on like one of the Saturday night TV tapings. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be amazing. And sure enough, like 2 weeks later, me and Chuck actually wrestled as the Soul Surfers, and we wrestled a tag team called Disorderly Conduct, and
Okay.
um,
I'm
they
trying
were
to
like a
remember
Saturday
that.
night. They were a Saturday night team,
Okay.
and let me just tell you, the match sucked. Like him and I were so nervous and green, and like I remember like the double down happened in the ring, and I was supposed to make the hot tag to Chuck, and you know, for some reason I'm selling, and I lean over, and he's standing in the middle of the ring just putting his hand out. Like I was like, "What are you doing?
Not on
Go
the
back
apron.
outside." He didn't go on the apron. He came in and was like standing right next to me, saying, "Give me a tag." And I was like, "You got to go to the corner." So it was like it was all messed up. We both were green as hell, and it kind of set us back a minute, but it also like we had major league bodies too at the time, you know, both young, 6'5", 6'6", 245, lean. So it kind of put the power plant on notice, you know, like they knew they had some athletes that were training down there, you know, guys on TV, officials in WCW. So it was all good, you know, it was all good. But originally, to answer your question, it was actually me and Chuck that were kind of forming stuff before. But like once the power plant, you know, started evolving. You know, we eventually Paul Orndorff became the head trainer when Jody kind of either, I don't know if he was forced out or retired. I can't remember the inner workings of that, but it was Paul Orndorff who kind of took the lead, and we moved to the main headquarters where the offices were. Before we were like in an old It was like an old rug warehouse or something. It was so weird, but yeah, but they gave it the old school, like grungy, grimy
Yeah.
dungeon type feeling, which was cool. But it was nothing compared to, like, they made it really modern and very high, like kind of NXT-ish
Yeah.
in WCW, and and Paul Orndorff was the trainer. So, and that's where kind of like, we just evolved into different thing. I think they originally put Stasiak and Palumbo, and they got up the TV first. Like after a while, like after that shit fest that me and Chuck had with disorderly conduct.
They tried to
uh,
mix it up a little bit more, maybe.
but we lost the board shorts, and
Yeah.
he became like a Tarzan type gimmick, and I became uh, the overly physical NCAA basketball player called Basket Case. That lasted maybe about 3 or 4 matches, but we were just trying stuff out, and the power plant
Sure.
that's the place to try it out, and so we were trying stuff out, and eventually when Sean O'Hare came, he came a little later than all of us, but his raw ability and just like, he was more developed than us. I think at the time he was maybe 28, 29. I was 22, maybe 21,
Yeah.
and he was yoked, and an unbelievable athlete, one of the best athletes I've ever seen, especially for being as tall as he was, and so that's when kind of we him and I kind of linked up and stuff. So, and that worked out pretty quick. Like we started doing some really cool tag moves. Like our styles were, he was very powerful, where I was a little bit more like, uh, I was doing like moonsaults at the time. I would do a springboard clothesline and stuff, and the drop kicks were always a part of it. So where he was more forceful, but he also did that Shanton bomb that was pretty cool.
That was
He
beautiful.
did like a backflip off the top rope and stuff. Like, he just a freak athlete, But
Yeah.
we put the tag team together, and once they started putting us on TV, like we kind of like uh, got some attention right away, and like, luckily, because things weren't working at the time with WCW, like Vince Russo or people even before or after him that were running it, like they were kind of just throwing Hail Mary. And we were the Hail Mary pass, like, okay, let's get these guys from the power plant. They've been signed for a few months at least. Let's see what they got. And they put us on TV actually all together as the Natural Born Thrillers.
Which,
Where
yeah,
it's,
and awesome.
Stasiak, Palumbo, myself and O'Hare, Mike Sanders is the mouthpiece. Reno Rick was in there. Who else? Johnny the Bull Stamboli.
Yep.
So that made up our group, the two tag teams, and Reno, Johnny, and Mike Sanders, and it just was a nice little mix. And then Kevin Nash was our Coach Nash for a while. So we were given almost every opportunity to survive, or at least get over. I mean, it was tough. It was the dying days of WCW, and we just, I guess we were just too green to really make a huge difference. We made a splash enough to be the first like guys to go over to WWE. Um, but like it was a sinking ship, So
Yeah, and it's hard to resurrect that as any talent, I'm sure, on the roster. You talked about those tag moves that you and Sean O'Hare had. The one where you would throw a guy in from the floor to the ring,
oh yeah.
like insane. I'd love to hear how you guys come up with that. And like one specific one I saw that you did to Sting, which seems like, I mean, I saw you do it to a lot of smaller guys, but doing it to Sting seemed insane.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you about Sting, but that originated. I'm not sure how it originated, but like me and O'Hara messed around, and those ropes were a little lower. So, and we worked a lot of like cruiserweights. Like at first we worked like Hoovy,
Right.
Ray, Young Dragons, 3 Count, and these all guys are like we could throw around. And I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was. We might have been practicing at the power plant with Alan Funk, because the guy had to jump with us a little bit. And Kwee Alan Funk, I think he was our first subject, and we'd throw him in pretty easy. So we started doing it to a lot of guys, but smaller guys, um, and we even got like fancy with it one time. We did the Jamie Noble where Mike Sanders was in the ring and we threw him in, and basically Mike Sanders caught him in air and did a power slam out of it.
Wow. I've
Yeah,
never seen that. I gotta find that one.
it's out there. It's out there. It might even be like on some, I think maybe Twitter or something. Someone posted it, and I surely retweeted it or something. But yeah, it was. And then the Sting story was, O'Hare and I, when we were tag team champions, we went to a Australian tour in Sydney, and in Sydney we were wrestling Booker T and Sting in a tag match. And Sting came up to us and he was like, "Hey, that double bill you guys do, I want to take it." And we were kind of scared because he's Sting, and we're throwing Evan Courageous, who's 170 pounds, and Shane Helms and Shannon Moore, and guys that were very agile or like just flick in there, But Sting, he's 225, 230, and but no, he took it, and if you saw it, he didn't get in as easy as the other ones did.
Yeah.
He barely got in, like his head just barely made it in,
On the
and he
ropes. He like somersaulted on the ropes almost.
he landed kind of on his ass, where like he was backwards against the ropes. So he got in, but it wasn't very clean, and I would have hated if we hurt him by accident, because when you're young. It, the one thing you can't do is hurt like a veteran, and definitely not the flagship of the company, like
No,
so
absolutely. But I mean,
yeah.
it was so creative. I don't know that you've seen like, the odd Big Show throw into the ring or something like that, but never two guys just launching someone in. It
I,
was a great move.
I feel like it never got as much credit as it deserved either. Like,
No,
you
I'd
know,
say not.
like they show a lot of stuff, over the years that becomes like a Jeff Hardy running the barrier and drop
Yep.
kicking somebody, or I don't know, but like that's it was kind of crazy, like it just launching a dude in there, and like some of them were just perfect, it's just like no one really talks about it a lot. I don't know, like usually moves are like that pop up, on timelines and say, "Look at this, you remember this," and never. But oh well,
Maybe it's coming. Maybe some people dive into the WCW stuff and it'll come soon.
maybe, yeah.
You end up falling victim to the Goldberg streak as well. I'd love to if you have any memories from that match with Goldberg.
It was on a second streak, so it wasn't as
Okay.
he
Later.
lost to Nash, and then WCW, once they tried to resurrect his streak, and he went on another streak towards the end, the dying days, and I think I might have been like number 42 or something, and it was it wasn't much of a match, it was basically we were the heel stable, the Natural Born Thrillers, and I think Ric Flair was the commissioner at the time, so. He's like, "Marco, you got a match tonight, Marco." And I wasn't gonna know who it was, and I'm out there like, what's gonna happen to me? And then Goldberg comes out, and it was a squash match pretty much. But the one thing that I that springboard clothesline he used to do in the ring, I gave the springboard, like did the hangman on the ropes, so he sold on the inside, and I did the springboard and kind of crossbody, and he caught me, and basically I think like switched me over here, and basically slammed me and then spear jackhammer, but it wasn't much. It was cool to be in the ring with him, but it would have been much better on the first streak,
Right.
when when everything was like just wicked hot and just out of control over. At that time, it's just like, even though we were getting a lot of TV time and stuff, we weren't experiencing like a true like big voluptuous crowd. It was
Yeah.
kind of like we started doing Nitro and Thunder together. The crowds were just smaller and smaller. We worked with smaller venues, and if it was a big venue, it sounded horrible because it was like big space, and not many people, so very echoey and stuff, and it sucked. It sucked, and happy for our opportunity and the breakout on TV with all your friends at the time. Like that's like starting a new school, not by yourself, but with all your friends. Like it's almost like a rather than being shy and stuff, you come into school feeling more confident, and that was kind of us, and we probably got a little heat with the boys, with the veterans, but hey,
Yeah,
we're not the first young guys to get heat, right?
right, exactly. And probably not the last.
We're kind of the last.
Do you remember any memories from like that dying, well, not the dying WCW, but the final day in Panama City?
Uh, Not really, not really. I mean, what's kind of crazy is I remember I had a dark match, which was a pretty hot match. I was with Jason Jett. I think I don't know if he went by Jason Jett. I can't remember. It's where maybe the pile drivers were taking his toll. I
Yeah.
can't remember. So, uh, but I had a dark match with somebody, and it was really good. And I was happy because I knew the WWE officials were backstage. So, but I wasn't worried. I wasn't like one of these scaredy cat. Like I knew that if they were to be interested in anybody, especially at first, like you couldn't. It was a no brainer with me, O'Hare, Palumbo, and even Stasiak, who had heat with WWE in the past. He got to come back as well. But basically four guys that are like 6'4" to 6'6" in height and all major league bodies. Like, and we didn't have that. We weren't making those big contract money. Like.
Yeah.
We were probably at a modest, like somewhere between 75 grand and 125 grand, so easy for WWE to pick that up. And that's how it became part of the invasion stuff. But that day, like, I think the only thing that sticks out from that day or that like time period was I think we went out the night before and we met and partied a little bit with Johnny Knoxville.
Oh, that's
You
so
know,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So that was kind of cool, and basically, I think they were Chuck and O'Hare and some of the other guys were there like a day or two before,
Mhm.
and I was married, and I think I had like a 1 year old or something, so I flew in on time and stuff. But those guys met that guy, so the night that I came in and went out, they were out with him already, so it was kind of cool. That's what I remember. But I remember Shane McMahon backstage too. But at that time, like I wasn't afraid. Like I knew I was gonna have a job somewhere. Um,
Yeah.
I just figured. So I just didn't know how, and I didn't know, you know, what was gonna happen. But I don't remember anything that stuck out. Like it wasn't like a doomsday for me. I wasn't shedding tears or I don't vividly remember anything. It was just
Right.
whatever.
It's funny because we hear so much stuff about the invasion angle from fan side, obviously not viewed in like the best light. But as someone who was a part of it, like, was it like excitement for you that the invasion angle was happening at first?
Yeah, oh yeah, yes, but myself and O'Hare, we were kind of getting exposed a little bit, and I say this like, you know, um, we just were green. We're still very green, and when you go to WWE, if you don't have the complete package, or like, or you're in between stuff or whatever. If something's lacking, it's very very like glaring when you work. Everybody sees it. It's just and there was a lot of stuff that just it felt a lot of pressure. So the invasion angle was cool, especially the night in Atlanta. That it was like we're five of us squared off against five WWEers. Like, and then ECW comes from the crowd. And what the hell they doing? They joined forces with us. We kicked their ass, and out comes Stephanie McMahon and Shane McMahon. They own the company now, WCW. We're invading and all that stuff. Like it's a great time. But like for me personally, like they were leaning on me a little bit. Like my work rate wasn't where it was supposed to be. Had all the I was one giant slab of clay, you know, like you could mold the shit
Right.
out of me, but I wasn't quite the finished product just yet, you know, and I knew it, you know, but like also I was maybe 24, you know, my first Nitro in 2000, I was 23, my first birthday, my 23rd birthday was my first Nitro,
Oh, okay.
um, yeah, in Des Moines, Iowa. So I was I was 24 years old probably. And, it just, you know, I don't know, it just didn't, you know, it didn't phase me. Like I knew, like if I need to work on my craft, they're probably gonna send me, which they did to. They sent me in O'Hare to at first HWA in Cincinnati,
Mhm.
but then they moved us over to where the Giants were over in OVW with the Lesnar's, the Batistas, the Ortons. That was a great experience. John Cena. We 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 immediately, you know, had a great rapport with those guys. Met, you know, the Basham brothers were there. So much talent. Basically, all the WWE talent on Raw and SmackDown for the next like 10 years. You know, like 5 to 10 years. It was really really cool, and we had a tight knit group, and it was fun. It was fun.
I mean, that ruthless aggression era is really being born in that OVW class, which is so cool that you're around them. You have some matches that are out there with a young prototype, right? John Cena.
Yeah,
How was he back then?
he was cool. He was really the same as he is now, which you know I haven't spoken to him in years. You know, I still stay in touch with Orton and stuff, and Rey Mysterio. He's still really good. You know, we keep in contact. But Cena, like I haven't seen in years, and not too long ago, a friend of mine was waiting in line um, to meet and greet with John Cena and get his autograph. He's like, you and John Cena cool?" I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, you know, tell him I said what's up, please. Just mention my name and just want to see his reaction, you know. And he said, you know, I'm Mark Jindrak's friend from back home, and he's like, oh, he glared up, and he's like, how's he doing, you know, and that made me feel good because I'm really happy for his success. It's crazy to see what he's become, you know, especially on this farewell tour right now. Um, but it was cool just to, you know, through a friend to say hello, you know, and but like, you know, those guys, all those guys, Lesnar, Cena, Orton, pretty much we're all just, you know, we're all the same as we are now, kind of just, you know, a little more mature versions, you know.
Yeah.
Took me and Orton a little longer though, but
What is OVW where you first meet Orton?
yeah, yeah. And he had an injury or something. I want to say he had like a dark match or something with the Dudleys or something, and he broke his foot. So he was kind of returning from an injury. Um, and basically we you know we met and kind of like organically kind of started hanging out, kind of like me and O'Hare did back in the day, and felt the same way, like hit it off right away, become like brothers, boys, you know. And but him and I were just we're young, we're, you know, like at the time, you know, like I like I said, I was probably like 24, maybe 25 tops. He was 22 maybe. And we're just immature, you know. And but everybody, we had charisma, like when we were just in real life hanging out and stuff. People like being around us, so word traveled fast, like, hey, these guys are like friends and could be a cool thing. And that's how kind of like the whole evolution thing kind of got brought about. Somebody from the office noticed something or saw something, and that's kind of how it, you know, got brought about.
So yeah, it's obviously well rumored like you were going to be Evolution's fourth man, and then everything happened. Is that when is the first time that you hear about Evolution, the group?
um well, they flew from the OVW there. They flew myself, Orlando Jordan, and Kevin Fertig, Mordecai,
Oh, yeah.
um, us three up to Stanford, and we had a meeting with creative. I remember Stephanie McMahon was there, and they basically told us this is when they wanted to really start getting the guys from OVW out, you know, like,
Yeah.
and they told me I was going to be in Evolution, you know, mind blowing. You know, of course, they told Orlando Jordan what he was going to be doing with JBL and stuff, and Mordecai being Kevin Furtick, you know. So that was basically it. And Then I went back to the power plant and just, started, not the power plant, OVW.
Yeah.
And I think I was on the road at the time too. I think I was still like in Louisville, but I was also on the road. And that's when like it was common knowledge that we were gonna be like evolution and stuff. And but I can't remember like um but basically what happened was Triple if you saw the documentary, basically Triple H didn't want me in it and for good reason. Like me and Orton we were idiots, man. We were young and we were very, very entertaining to say the least, but it just wasn't what Triple H wanted. He started trying to hone everyone's craft together on car rides, like how the boys used to do it, ride down the highway and talk X's and O's, talk hot tags and this and that. And that just wasn't the vibe that me and Orton were on at the time, like I said, you remember his early years are well documented. He was a loose cannon. I was young and immature. That's been documented many times as well in that documentary. And Flair, the thing was, well, like when Triple H would rent the Lincoln, and me and Orton would be in the back and Flair in the front, and Triple H would drive. Like I said, he wanted to talk like about wrestling and stuff, and me and Orton's antics, talking about like being young life, dating and girls and parties, and Flair the conversations always lean more towards that because Flair, like obviously, he liked that. He still liked that lifestyle, like hanging out, having fun. He still does till
I
today.
was gonna say he probably still does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't out of the question why he would, but like, why he wanted to hear about our antics and stuff. And you can just tell that Triple H hated it. He said in the documentary he wanted to, chuck me and Orton off a bridge, kick us out of the car, stuff like that. But what happened was when you separated us, I toned it down, and so did he. So that basically, that's even Triple H says it, like basically. So when they're separate, they're cool, but when they're together, they're freaking idiots, So, and that was they sent me over to SmackDown, or no, they basically I continued on Raw. Yeah, they basically they took me out of the group, and then they continued with me and Cade. Me and Cade were a tag team. And me and Orton were still on Raw together. So we still travel together. So he's in Evolution. He's still in that crazy mode. And I'm still in crazy mode, just with Garrison Cade now, And but we still travel together, me and Orton. And you know, that was the next step. Like we're, okay, now they're not together in tag team, but they're still traveling together. And, maybe we show up late to the building one day or I don't know, Orton misses a walk through at WrestleMania. I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they eventually moved me to SmackDown through the draft. I got, one of those drafts after WrestleMania drafts and stuff. And
Did you know that was happening, or is that like as legit?
yeah, they basically that was the rumor, and I was supposed to be moving over there to be start the Reflection of Perfection character, which I kind of like with the help of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like he's the one who kind of like when I was on Raw, amongst all while all that shenanigans was going on, there was times where I was still like picking people's brains, and at that time, like I found one day in catering, you just randomly pop up and see Stone Cold, so you ask him a question, it turns into a conversation, and he just was like, I was like, is there anything, I don't know if you even seen my matches, is there anything you can tell? He was like, well, you're Mark Jindrak, you're a great athlete, you're a handsome guy, you got all the attributes, but like, he was like, the thing that really makes me, if I was just, Steve Austin or what was he before Steve Williams?
Running Steve? Is that what?
Yeah, Sonny Steve. He was like, he's like, I didn't come into my own until I became Stone Cold, or the Rattlesnake. He's like, what's Mark Jindrak? What's your moniker? So he gave me like homework one Raw. He's like, when I see you next week, give me a list of 10 potential monikers. Go through them and we'll discuss. He said even if they sound stupid or like, you know, it might sound stupid at first, but it'd be good something that if you put it out in the air, it could grow on. And so basically I came up with a bunch of stuff, and one of them was a reflection of perfection. He liked it. He liked the reflection of perfection, and
Catchy. That's a great name.
yeah, and the mirror was added to it and stuff, and then they added Teddy Long to the mix, and that really. That's another thing, people give me a lot of flack about like it was like kind of a narcissist gimmick all over again, but like a Timu narcissist. uh, but like I really, really love that character, and if you go back and like it never saw the light of SmackDown Day. It started originated on SmackDown with Teddy Long.
Mhm.
Um, with Teddy Long, and basically he was fighting Spike Dudley. I lay out Spike Dudley, and we become a faction, me and Teddy. Then the mayor comes in, but it was all velocity after that. All velocity. It was like, but literally like 10, 11, 12, 13 velocities week after week. But I'd win. Never lost. And our kind of stick was getting better with Teddy Long and stuff. He was getting, obviously he's amazing on the mic, and I was getting more comfortable playing the character and playing with the mirror and stuff, and getting catchy stuff to do, like the move my move set and stuff. And but it just kind of, it never saw the light of SmackDown, like, and it kind of just, how things easy come, easy go, like, and that's kind of what happened. And but it's not like they're just like push me off the sides, kick me to the curb. They put me in a faction with Angle and Luther Reigns.
Which I
So,
loved. By the way, I love that faction.
you
Yeah.
know, so that became like, it was like it was obviously a step up. I'm now that was kind of like an introduction to SmackDown, which was cool. And now I kind of was glad I didn't do any of the reflection of perfection on SmackDown, because sometimes it's hard working in and out of gimmicks. Now I'm a henchman for Kurt Angle. I was just reflection of perfection. It was kind of it was cool. It was a cool new beginning, and we right off the get go we were in really high profile matches with it. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, RVDs, and um, you know talent like that. So it was amazing. So, and I liked Luther. Me and Luther were always kind of cool. And Angle at that time was just a trip. He was off the chain. He was off the hook at the time. So it was fun times. It was fun times.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say like we don't hear much about Luther Reigns, like a story here or there, but you worked closely with him. Like, what was Luther Reigns like during that run? Any memories come to mind?
Um, sometimes people leaned on his work a little bit, um, or work rate. I think one time he had a big rivalry building with like Undertaker, and I guess kind of like the match was underwhelming and stuff. And I don't know. I guess they felt like they gave him the ball and he kind of fumbled it a little bit. I don't know. But like, um, what I thought about him, first of all, just a big dude, scary dude, and his mic. I would have loved to see him like more mic time. He got a little bit towards the end, but like him on the mic he was believable, and like his conviction, everything was amazing. So in that sense, like um he was light years ahead of me, but I think in the work rate I was light years ahead of him. So, and we eventually had a squared off into a rivalry, him and I, and they gave me the victory and got my hand raised, and kind of, we went off in the sunset, and but that was kind of like that was kind of like the beginning and the end. Like I eventually got released and stuff, and although I got to some good times in WWE, like it was mediocre. My run was mediocre. WCW was cool. Like I was too young to even rate it. It was just amazing, amazing. Like talk about a cool youth, like I
Right.
did this as a youngster, like um and then WWE was I traveled, I got to feel like a superstar, had some high points, low points, um, good time, had a job for 4 or 5 years at WWE. Um, and then basically my time ended. I got released July 5th, 2005, and that pretty much after that happened, basically it was a trial period for a few months. So that was Mexico and that was Japan. I did a lot of Japan tours, did some Mexico tours, and obviously Mexico was the ultimate choice. So
Yeah. No, and you made some great history in Mexico. Did a lot even beyond wrestling that I'd love to get into. But going back quickly to Kurt Angle, I mean, being around somebody like him again so young in your career, was he one to give advice here and there, like in the stable?
no, not really, not really. And I haven't done any podcasts lately or anything, and I don't really talk about it. But like to clear up, like there was kind of like a clip going around where he talks about an almost fight, like where Eddie wanted to fight him. I don't know if you saw that clip.
I did on Chris Van Vliet, I think. Yeah.
Yes, and he states on there that first of all, he like everything what on there he lied like 5 times. He it sounded like he was making it up as he went, and he definitely was lying. In that clip, he said our name of our tag team. We didn't have a name of the tag team. He called it the Member Society or something weird. If you go back and check it, he calls us something. We weren't that. He talks about we were roughing up Eddie, and then Eddie. That's the reason why Eddie got mad at him, wanted to fight him. At that time, me and Eddie were really, really tight. That was like actually was kind of cool. Coolest thing in my wrestling career was I was really, really good friends with Eddie Guerrero. Really good friends. We traveled together. Me, Ray, and him traveled together. We're travel partners. And what's crazy was like traveling those two Mexican guys. Little did I know I was going to become a Mexican star one day.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to make fun of them from the back seat, going, "Yeah, hola, ¿cómo estás?" When they talk to their families and stuff. I used to be like trolling them and stuff. And but the thing about Eddie Guerrero was we were tight, and if I was stiffing the shit out of Eddie in the ring, he would have said, "Ease up," or "What the hell are you doing?" Like he would have went backstage and tried to attack Kurt Angle. Like so
Yeah.
that was another lie. Like but he goes and he makes it look like blame it on the greenhorns. Like when in all actuality at that time, you know, he's had the past with pills and stuff. That's when he was heavy into that. All that stuff happened, unfortunately, and I'm glad he's better now. But all that stuff happened because, his mind was altered a little bit, and I don't appreciate it. Like all these years later, like I hear him make these stories up as he goes. And this is easy because he's Kurt Angle. Let's face it, he's one of the like best workers of this generation, of me of all time. Unreal, unreal. And the fact that he was doing it most of the time with not probably a head on straight, is amazing. But like, all these years later, it's easy just to put it on me and Luther, like we were stiffing, but that didn't happen, like the fight that happened, but not because me and, 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 and there was also like another thing he came out with saying that basically me and Luther, like Luther's work was lacking and my promo skills were lacking. Basically, and he acted as if like he had a part in helping us or giving us advice. To answer your question, he never really gave us any advice. Never. It was like he was off in his own little world, and so like to hear him tell stories nowadays, they're very skewed. Like it's how he remembered it back then, but like sane minds, I can tell you that it happened completely different. And we never stiffed Eddie and roughed up Eddie. And he said Chavo too. I never wrestled Chavo. Like Chavo wasn't. We wrestled WCW, never in WWE. So just to clear that up, like I don't
Yeah.
know, but
Oh, it infected you. Yeah.
but yeah, Kurt Angle never really gave me any advice. He was cool to be on TV and come out with and hear his music and stuff, but he wasn't any kind of mentor. He wasn't in a position to be a mentor to anybody, honestly. So, but in terms of his work rate, he has all the respect in the world for me. I believe he's one of the best workers of all time.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. I mean, something that you were there for him with side by side. So I'd love to get your take because you remember the time well. Is your feud with the Big Show? I've always wondered. Yes, do you have the story behind that? Can you take us into? I'm assuming it was not a real tranquilizer dart, obviously, but or maybe the
Well,
dart was real, but
it was crazy. It was a real dart, and that was the sucky part for Big Show. I always thought to myself, like Vince always kept him strong. Like he rarely lost. In fact, he beat us 3-on-1 in a pay per view, like me,
yeah,
Angle. So Vince always kept him really strong. But when it comes time to get some heat on Big Show, it's always like ridiculous stuff. It's like someone's throwing steel stairs into his back, or running him over or something, or in this case shooting with a dart, and like that. It's like, so I felt bad for him all the time, but it was like it was really cool. It was the fifth anniversary of SmackDown, so that part was really cool. And um basically shooting with the tranquilizer dart and stuff. The cool story about that was, at the same time, like me and Luther, we're kind of finding our way in that group as well, because it was pretty much, how the stuff works. That there's henchmen and then there's the main folk, like Angle.
right.
Just like when Angle was with Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, like kind of like we, and it kind of um it kind of sucked because like basically like these things, like when we had a chance to do something big, it was like, usually we're the ones getting beat up, whatever. But in this case, we got to do the beating up, like, and trying to find our way and stuff. Luther was always trying to like behind the scenes, or on camera a little bit, be like, the enforcer over me too, like as if like he was like the big brother, like he sent the shot,
Yeah.
so he was always trying to like big time me on TV a little bit, like I was cool with it because I didn't try to be Mr. I was young and I had, that was my character, young youth, and what was funny about that, I remember, so when we shot him with the dart and he finally was down, you know, Angle sends me to go get the clippers and scissors and stuff. So I come back and I have uh clippers that have a plug obviously to it, but at the ring there's nothing to plug them into, So I got them and we have scissors, I think. And before like they could set up the thing, like basically I get to the ring, I give Angle the clippers, and I think Luther started looking at me and going, Jindrak, give me the clippers. And I was like, they're not plugged in, Luther. And he was, give me the clippers, trying to big time me. I was like, they're not plugged in. And I gave him the clippers. I don't remember what we did with it, but like I just remember that. And I also remember um when the dart was stuck in him and he was face down, Big Show, uh he basically like we took turns like hopping on his back and like cutting his hair
Yeah.
or shaving when they eventually got the connection. We shaved his hair off. I remember I was like when I hopped on his back, I kind of sat on I forgot the dart was there, and I sat
Oh.
on the dart, pushing it a little more, and he goes, and Big Show goes, Ginger, get the fuck off of me, And I was like, oh my God, so I don't know if that the TV caught that, but that's what I remember. And I remember the Big Show never ever grew his hair back ever, so
Yeah, you guys did a good job. He liked.
yeah. Um but that was cool. Like it was the fifth anniversary of SmackDown, I remember, and that kind of set the tone for Angle's group. And like I said, although Angle never really mentored us, just being in his presence or in the ring with him, you learn a lot, and I learned a lot.
No, I mean, and to finish off your time with Luther, at least, you have a match with The Undertaker. where Luther, I mean, it looks on TV like he crushes Undertaker's head with that camera.
Yeah,
You're underneath. And also, I thought it was odd that the match ended and then he did it. Like,
yeah.
do you remember
That
that?
was kind of foreshadowing to like our friction. That started our friction. Like like
Right. Okay.
what they're like little morsels. They're gonna break us up, and um, but like they wanted some tension between us because then more tension happened when Luther wrestled Undertaker. I want to say the pay-per-view match in Pittsburgh, possibly Pittsburgh. And I think I came out with Luther as like his like just kind of like a ringside with him,
Yeah.
and I started spazzing out and got myself disqualified. Like the ref sent me back. I don't know. I was kind of bitching about something, like just throwing. It was whereas the referee was going to kick me out, and then that was kind of like Luther. I was supposed to have his back, and now I'm not there because of my stupidity, or So they were starting to do a little bit back and forth, like him and I kind of leading towards eventually breaking up, So, but yeah, so
So
that was about it with that.
that was foreshadowing. Yeah. Was
Yeah.
that camera shot? Like, I guess it just looked more brutal than it was, maybe. And it sounds it too, like all at once.
Uh, yeah. I don't know. I can't remember if it looked. Undertaker, he wasn't one to ever like he took shots like a man's man, like he
Right.
wouldn't. And I think Luther was pretty good with it. It was
Yeah.
obviously he's got another, like I said, with Big Show. Undertaker was another one. If you're getting heat on him, it's got to be something big because these guys are larger than life, almost non-selling characters. So
Totally.
you had to shoot him, hit him with the camera, run him over. It had to be one of those things all the time. So.
Yeah, really beat him down. Well, before we start to wind it down, I do want to ask you about, you said I think you recently posted your anniversary of beating Eddie Guerrero recently came
Yeah.
up, which I think you consider like your biggest win, at least in WWE. And you mentioned how you guys were friends too. How did that moment kind of mean to you, and how did that come about?
Uh, it wasn't as cool as I for either of us. Like I said, we are really tight and cool then. So, but I remember being in Rockford, Illinois, and I think we were coming back from a tour, like Scotland or something. So we were just like the back end of it.
Yeah,
So we do the weekend of shows, Raw or whatever, SmackDown, and then go overseas to like Scotland, do a week over there, and then come back over and do TV again. So it was like the TV coming back. So we were both very tired. Like we haven't been able to go to the gym as much as we like, or our diet wasn't as good as we like it to be. But just years later, like, at the time it was a lackluster match, but like years later, I was in the ring with Eddie Guerrero, singles, and it was kind of cool. Got the victory with it, Angle was in that involved. He threw me the ring bell, and I, played possum. He went for the splash. I moved the ring bell on top of me. He hit the ring. I throw the bell out.
yeah,
Roll over 1, 2, 3. That was cool. That was awesome. And again, like just to be around him and learn, just learn about Mexican culture. I had never ever thought I would, need to use it. Just I would just curious, like, oh, you wrestled here, you're from El Paso, and you wrestled in Mexico, and you wrestled in CMLL, and just it was never ever like it was just weird. It was never ever like brought up. It's just but just crazy. Like my kind of my best friends were him and Ray, and
yeah.
both Mexicans, and it just is crazy to years later, like just a few years later, I was going to be a pretty like mainstream Mexican star, and not just in wrestling, like mainstream as well. So it's kind of crazy how those things happen.
Yeah, I mean, in novellas and your own cologne too, I think, right?
My own cologne, yeah,
Mexico. Do you
yeah,
have it on right now?
no, I don't, I haven't. It was that cologne was in like it was with a company like almost like a company like Avon where they have like
Yeah,
they seasonal, they have like packets of like I was like the fall scent. It was called Strong Mind, and I was like the cover model and all that stuff. So that was cool. Um, But yeah, that was, my Mexico project was pretty much like I said, WWE was cool, but like it was mediocre to me. Like felt like I feel like I had more to demonstrate than mediocrity, like, and it's not because it just sometimes, like I said, I didn't get over with the American crowd, but like the Mexican crowd, they took to me so much differently, It's like the things I was doing, I get booed in WWE, and then, a year later, I'm doing the same things, but getting ridiculously cheered, So, um, it was just a wild ride, It's a wild ride.
Absolutely. Did it take a lot to like adapt to the Mexican style of wrestling with like CMLL?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just because right off the get go, I wrestled me and Johnny the Bull went there. We were wrestling at first with Alberto Del Rio, that was Dos Caras Jr., and Lismar Jr., who was later in WCW, or before in WCW, I mean, a long time ago. So they both spoke English, so that was, easy, and but just like just the fact of being there and stuff, I knew very little about it, So that was like the fun part about it is like I just didn't want to do independence and stuff. Like besides WWE, there wasn't much going on in America. I think TNA was not really kind of a big thing yet, and I think Ring of Honor was, but like I wasn't the Ring of Honor type, like those guys those were like the middle-sized guys who were putting on these crazy good matches and stuff. I was, on a different, so I didn't have many options, like, and so like Mexico was just like the easy choice. I mean, I liked the fact that CMLL, they had I didn't want to just wrestle one show here. I do an indie show in Rhode Island, and tomorrow I'm gonna do one in New Jersey, and they're all like
Yeah.
not a lot of meaning to it, like it's one-offs, and whereas CMLL, they had storylines and TV and house shows, and Arena Mexico was like, an incredible arena, the Cathedral of Lucha Libre, like I wrestling there and like getting over there in a short period of time was probably the most amazing thing that ever happened in my career, and that was like getting over in Mexico. I was basically did everything I wanted, all the mediocrity I had in WWE, the things I saw my friends do, and I would try with Eddie and Ray and Randy Orton, books and like sponsors, and I started doing all that stuff. I wrote a book in Mexico. It was a children's book
Okay.
about bullying. Like I became a big figure there. It was called Marco Corleone, Las Primeras Luchas de mi Vida, which means the first fights of my life, basically.
Yeah.
And that was talking about getting bullied and how I did it, how I went about it, and turning the negative into a positive. But like the cologne, the writing of the book, all this stuff was just all the stuff I wanted to do in America that never worked out. But like, like you don't to get to 10, it doesn't always have to be 5 plus 5. I learned, 7 plus 3 in this case, like, and I just saw a bigger, like I like the continuity of storylines, and also I like the fact that um the wrestlers, like El Santo and Blue Demon were like their beloved characters in the 50s and 60s, and like on film, like a lot of the films, like they're movie stars, and they took luchadors in Mexico as a very cultural close thing. Like in America at that time, like wrestlers are almost considered. It's more mainstream now with ESPN and all the whole
Right.
thing, shebang. But like back then, it was like if I went around telling people I was a wrestler, like sometimes I was embarrassed to tell people I was a wrestler
Yeah.
because I was so athletic based. I'm like a 360 windmill in basketball and run a 4.5 40-yard dash. But yet I hear people talk, "Oh, you're a wrestler," like as if I'm a meathead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I'd probably have a better combine than most NFL tight ends. Like, and so I was always defending my craft, and that was a great thing about wrestling in Mexico is like they respected that athleticism, and it's just, they love foreigners in Mexico, and I was there willing to learn and learning the language pretty quickly. And it just, man, it's a wild ride. I'm just glad I got the chance to go.
Absolutely. I mean, your journey, better than anyone's, I think, explains it doesn't always have to be a straight line to success. And
Yep.
everyone's success is different too.
Yeah. And it's crazy, like, all that time doing the lucha libre experience, like I was one of the first.
Yeah.
Vampiro was like basically what Vampiro in Mexico was in the 90s, I was in the 2000s, when I got there. I just took it a step further with like the TV. Like I really, I got into some really, really mainstream soap operas and stuff. So all that was just crazy in itself. Acting in a different language. It was a lot of
That's wild.
challenges. It was a lot of challenges and stuff. And actually, because I had an accent, my accent's what kind of got me over in acting. If you remember in the 90s, Arnold Schwarzenegger here was like doing movies. I'll be back. Hasta la vista,
Yeah.
baby. You know, I had a phrase there in the soap opera that I did. I did some soap opera called Porque la Manda, and it was huge. Wrestling. Remember wrestling back in the day would do like when there was ratings and had a significant effect on wrestling.
Yeah.
And WWE would do like a rating of 4 or 5, or even the Hot Times it would do a 9
Yeah.
rating. This soap opera, like on opening night, like on prime time, like 8 o'clock at night, it was doing ratings as high as 33. 33.
And 30 is that 33 million people then watching that
I
soap?
don't know. I don't know how many, but it's a rating of 33, but it had a share of 56%. So I don't know the share. That means basically share, like what that basically means is more than half of Mexico was watching it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's
it was on Televisa. It was free TV,
yep.
not cable, free. Where like you didn't need cable. You turn it on, you get the antenna. There I am. And what was crazy was I was only supposed to be in the first episode. We filmed it in Chicago. I had scenes only with the main character. He was like the George. His name was Fernando Colunga. He was like the George Clooney of Mexico.
Okay.
Very respected actor. That's where the story started. Where basically I used him as a mule. He was in Chicago working. He was poor. He needed money for a plane ticket to fly back to Mexico because he found out he had a daughter 7 years ago. Now she's 7 years old. So he came to this boat where I was staying in Chicago, asked for a loan. I gave him money, but I used him as a mule, had him bring like some luggage. Basically, he got caught. They detained him. He basically snitched on me. The police come and get me. I was supposed to be one and done.
That,
Basically, my last scene was in the jail, inside the cell. My lawyer basically says in Spanish, like, yeah, he basically sung. He told on you. His name was Jesus Garcia. And my line was supposed to be El Infeliz de Jesus Garcia, like, lo voy a hacer picadillo. That was like, I'm going to make chopped meat of him. Like, it
okay.
was a peculiar saying.
Yeah, yeah.
But the way I said it was so weird. It came across as I'll be back. Hasta la vista, baby. And you have to understand, this was seen by more than half of Mexico at the time. And it automatically, these people like were drawn to it. It started like, if I'm not mistaken, on Twitter that night, it like it nationally trended on Twitter in Mexico, picadillo. And that was my just the way I said it. And what turned into was supposed to be my only episode. The producer loved it so much, and people loved the saying so much that he kept me in the novella. He basically kept writing me in from jail, where basically I start threatening this guy Jesus Garcia, threatening my lawyer, threatening everybody. Picadillo, picadillo, and
Oh, from jail.
over in jail. And then eventually, I over some kind of like weird like loophole,
Yeah.
I got out of jail, and I chased after this guy again, and then I ended up having beef with another guy who's another main character, and it just became I ended up doing like I think the length of it was like the soap opera went for like 8 months, 9 months. So I did like literally 100 and I was in part of the story for like 170 episodes, so it was Monday through Friday, so
Yeah.
a lot of TV time. And literally, I can tell you from 2010 to like 2018, when I left Mexico, every day I'd go in the street. Every day I was in public, somebody would say that picadillo, or they'd say the phrase in their little way they said it. It became really really big, and it really to the point where like I did so much TV after that. I started becoming more known as more like an actor instead of a wrestler.
I was gonna say you have at that point over half of Mexico seeing that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's insane.
But it became like I got really really over there in terms of like, see, wrestling was already like a sport of the people kind of, and wrestling always there has always been like the people can reach out and grab you almost, like
Yeah.
no security after matches. You walk out into a sea of 1,000 people would like just mob you. But it was amazing because it's what I always wanted. Like traveling with Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and Randy Orton, going places. These guys had prime TV, main event, belts, championship matches. I was like just, barely seeing SmackDown, you know what I'm saying? Like as a reflection of perfection. So like when we go public places, like I was like second, third, fourth fiddle all the time. These guys were, and whenever I was like getting crumbs, so to go to a place now and get like that kind of attention like they got, that's what sprung me to do all these things that I saw them do. When I traveled with Eddie, towards my last, time in WWE, sometimes when he wrote his book, the author traveled with him, so
Okay.
so like things I saw from them, I wanted to do, and you see Cena getting an acting gig or doing this or doing that. Like I wanted to act. I wanted to get endorsed by companies, like Gillette sponsored me when I was there, Nike sponsored me when I was there. Near the airport, I was in this huge, huge like billboard basically for Gillette, and I was like this, and I was just chiseled like 16 feet tall, just like it was amazing, like it was a wild ride, and just to see where lucha libre has become part of the American wrestling culture now, with the link up of WWE, like it's just crazy, like, but if this were, if this, all this, happened 10 years ago, I really believe I would be at the forefront of this whole project, like, and, um, but, whatever. But I enjoyed, the time I was in Mexico. I was there, ended up being there 12 years. The thing about, like the October 17th is when I beat Eddie Guerrero. But
Okay.
October 17th is also when I met my wife, who we just celebrated a 10-year anniversary. So, and
Congrats.
October 17th is also when I beat Liz Mark in a hair versus hair match in Mexico. So, like, October has so many big. My son was born October 23rd. October 18th, we officially got married. Um, and it also all the bad stuff happened. In WWE, I dislocated my ankle one time really bad. Um, in Mexico in 2013, I was in the hospital like 2 weeks because I broke my foot really bad. So October's a pretty plentiful month, but like just the history, the part of the being part of the history, and every year these things going on and stuff. I'm glad I had these memories.
Absolutely. So we're in your month right now. Wow, this is how many
Yeah.
more days left? Like
Well,
three
it's
more
winding down.
days.
All the good stuff already kind of happened,
Oh yeah.
So we're winding down. But like my wife and I, and my son, who's 9 years old, he was also born in Mexico. He has dual citizenship. Um, it's a really good time for us right now. We love Halloween, and that our tree goes up pretty much November 1st,
Yeah.
November 2nd
It's
ish.
got to. Yeah.
Got to, and we love kind of coming over Thanksgiving. My wife, when I lived in Mexico for 12 years, Thanksgiving wasn't celebrated. Um, so it felt weird not being just a normal day there. So I'm watching the Cowboys on TV, but there's traffic outside in Mexico. It felt weird. So now we're over here, since 2018. My wife, she's adapted the Thanksgiving holiday. she just loves this. We just love this part of the year. You know, Halloween right into Thanksgiving, right into Christmas. So, um, you know, we just love it.
A lot of happiness all the way,
A
definitely.
lot of happiness, yes, sir.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on here and just sharing like a bit of your journey. It's been so much fun just hearing a little bit. You really have had an incredible one.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You know, there was a decent amount of accolades in wrestling, but like again, like the Mexico experience, especially like finding my wife there and my
Yeah,
son, and like it just and I'm part of Mexican history. Like this soap opera gets shown. It's a classic now. It's become a classic. It shows like on all these chases every year. I have my hands plastered in the mall. There, it's called the Plaza of the Stars, Plaza de las Estrellas. Um, you know, my hands are plastered in the floors. You know, basically right next to Santo and stuff. Like it just, I'm a part of history there, and it, you know. I'm an American now. This is probably where I'll stay for the rest of my life. But the Mexican experience is like almost like a different life. It was like a
yeah,
life like completely separate, a dream life for 12 years. You know, so and a really nice round out to my career. Basically accomplishing all the things that I wish I would accomplish in WWE.
yeah. And now you've got your home away from home there too, right? In Mexico. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's awesome. Well, thank you again. I hope one day we could do this again down the road.
absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.